Gentlemen, it is never good news when the three of you are here. But let's try to make some sort of sense of what happened and where we go from here. Senator, this latest shooting comes almost exactly a year since Uvalde. What are people in Texas saying tonight?
Well, Stephanie, I think they're saying enough is enough. I mean, we've had this over and over. Just 10 days prior to this, we saw what happened in San Jacinto County when 5 other people were killed in a mass shooting. This senseless killing needs to stop, but unfortunately, Republicans in power won't do anything about it. You ask how we're feeling and how people are doing. People across the state are crying and grieving. We lost those 2 little girls that they're never coming home. The Cho family, this poor child is going to be an orphan. This whole family gone. Everybody that lost their life. It just, none of this makes any sense. But what I'm tired of is Republicans saying that they're thinking about these folks and praying about these folks. And we saw some of that today. And I don't doubt that the feelings of the people in the Texas Capitol today that talked about this issue and cried about this issue, I don't doubt that they don't feel bad for them. But if you feel bad for them, do something about this so it doesn't happen to anybody else. That's the overriding sentiment I think I see.
They need our prayers and a lot more. Matthew, same question to you. The last time you were on this show was the night of the Uvalde massacre. What are you hearing 1 year later from Texans?
I mean, I think Texans are tired. You know, the terrible stories we heard out of Uvalde, hearing children shot, dying in the classrooms. It's hard to live with, and then to hear now about a 6-year-old who's lost both their parents and a younger sibling. It's just, it's hard to live with. And I think people across the state are just, not numb because they still feel the pain of this, but just kind of disbelief that this continues to happen and that we're allowing this to continue to happen in this state and really across the country. It's, I've been involved in coverage of way too many of these shootings in the past few years, and it's just hard to grapple with that it just keeps happening and we keep having to go through this routine again.
Why are Texans allowing it, Senator? Because at the end of the day, lawmakers do, in theory, what their constituents want. So what are people saying they want? I mean, the governor's response, again, was a focus on mental health. And while mental health is an issue that plagues this country, it wasn't mental health that massacred those people.
Well, you're right, Stephanie. In theory, you are all of our constituents, not in theory, but generally speaking, right now, the polling numbers are high on this issue. 76% of all voters want to see a change here, and they want to see common sense gun solutions, raising the age limit, extreme risk protective orders, closing the gun show loophole. The fact is these Republicans are not leading. You've got Greg Abbott going around telling everybody, well, this is evil and it's a mental health crisis. It's domestic terrorism, every excuse under the sun. Certainly we have all of those things are true. But why in the world would you have a situation in a state where Republicans have put a system in place, a crazy system, that allows everybody and anybody that wants to have a gun, including mentally ill people, including, white supremacists? There is not one thing that keeps these kinds of people that shouldn't have a gun, from having a gun in Texas.
Ben, I thought of you this weekend because I would not want to trade places with you. I know you were tracking the social postings of the shooter. It's been reported he was posting extremist beliefs. What can you tell us?
Yeah, really quickly, Steph, if there is some sort of mental health thing that we can do about this, domestic terror thing that we can look into, it probably would have been about this guy. He posted a YouTube video that was on YouTube proper. You just go visit it today, of him taking off a Scream mask and saying, this is not who you thought it was it? Because he was already so deeply ingrained in white supremacist culture online that the fact that he was Latino was supposed to be a big reveal. He was very deeply into white supremacist spaces. He had an SS tattoo on his arm and a swastika on his chest. This guy was not stopped from purchasing a gun. This guy wasn't stopped from doing anything. In fact, he found a bigger community online. And I think the most disturbing part tonight is that when you bring this up on the internet, they say, you know what, it's all too perfect, Steph. It's all too perfect. It couldn't have actually happened this way. You know, here's a guy with a Hispanic name who's a white supremacist. What's that all about? See Elon Musk doing this right now. You know, playing around with people doing false flag theories on the internet. And I've been covering this stuff. I started on this beat 8 years ago, covering a false flag theory about my friend, whose girlfriend was shot and killed on live TV in Roanoke, Virginia. And now that guy's playing around with it. The richest guy in the world is playing around with it.
Explain to me. I don't understand what you're saying.
The idea, the false flag theory, is the idea that this didn't actually happen, or that this guy was set up by the feds, and he wasn't a white supremacist. He couldn't have been. That's the prevailing notion on the right. Not we need to fix mental health. Not we need to fix domestic terrorism. Definitely not anything having to do with guns. It's that we must abscond from the responsibility of the online fever swamps that we've helped create.
So this shooting happens, and tell me exactly what you do and how hard it was for you to find this shooter, his posts, and the community that he's in. Because in my mind, I think this is in the dark corners of the internet that you need all sorts of things to unlock.
Okay, so to find the guy, there's something tied to his email address that tied him to this Russian social media site that kind of looks like MySpace called OK. VK is their Facebook, OK is their MySpace. On there, there's pictures of nonstop Nazi paraphernalia, months of it. Most of it posted on April 21st, which was a few weeks ago. Him, his diaries posting about all sorts of plans for this precise event.
How do you feel reading that?
Really bad. But you know what makes me feel worse is I go on Twitter, I go on civilian internet, you know, the regular internet, and I see pictures of children, not blurred out, just children bleeding out on the sidewalk. And that's something that used to not really be very visible.
Why? That was my next question to you, right? I have a 16-year-old that on Saturday was sending this to me. My kids, I never had access to these kind of images after something like this would happen. What has changed?
Yeah, so your kid who's probably on Twitter looking up like basketball stuff, right?
Correct.
Regular, you know, looking up basketball highlights.
Exactly.
And then he sees the trending topic, Allen, Texas. He's like, I wonder what that's about. He clicks on it and he sees a picture of, you know, a 6-year-old bleeding out or a 3-year-old bleeding out.
One of these family members.
One of these family members. Not blurred out, just happening. And you want to know why it's everywhere? It's because the gore accounts on Twitter right now are getting boosted because they have the most engagements. They're the people who are getting the most people responding and saying, oh my God, that's terrible. That gets boosted to the top of this thing called the For You page, which makes it so everyone sees it. In previous, I know people like to bag on Facebook, and I understand that. But they used to do this thing called hashing for ISIS videos. They created it for ISIS videos where there were stuff, they would take videos, turn them into code for ISIS videos, for beheading videos. And that code would make it so if anyone posted anything like that, it would get instantly flagged by Facebook and taken down by a robot. For some reason, that's not on there on Twitter right now. I'm assuming it's because it's staffed by a couple people.
Has Twitter responded?
No, if you reach out to Twitter, you get a poop emoji in response. So that's the sort of care that's going into this sort of
I need you to tell our audience this again.
Yes.
So right now, if you go onto Twitter and you see one of these videos of these children who have been massacred and they're bleeding out in the street, and you contact Twitter and you say, hey, this video is up there, what happens?
Yeah, you get a poop emoji from the press team at Twitter. And like that's a nice prank for when stuff like this isn't going on, right? If you're asking about, you know, earnings or something, or how many subscribers the Twitter Blue has. But on days like that, it doesn't really work that way. And I'm just saying that this guy is trying to make it easier for this stuff to happen because it desensitizes you to the horrors of the world, desensitizes your kids to the horrors of the world. You're just horrifying them on a day-to-day basis.
We will not be desensitized. Matthew, what can you tell us about how the shooter got these weapons? He's 33 years old. Did he get them legally? Who is this person? How did it happen?
So yes, we haven't heard from official sources where the gun was purchased yet. We know that he had an AR-15, but you know, frankly, the state police have not released very much information. We haven't had a press conference in 2 days. We haven't really had any kind of an opportunity to ask officials questions, even from the day that it happened. We're hearing that there might be an update tomorrow. But, you know, the idea is it's not hard to access an AR-15 in the state of Texas. You can order one online and go pick one up at a gun store. You know, as long as you're over the age of 18, as we learned from the shooting in Uvalde, you can get one without really much of an intervention.
Senator, Uvalde parents pushed for this gun bill that made it through committee today, raising the age from 18 to 21. That's somewhat of a positive, but what's the likelihood it's going to be made into law?
Well, Stephanie, I mean, the likelihood is slim, and the families understand that, and they know that. They're going to keep working because their children didn't die in vain, and they're going to keep working and pushing back against the system that is made Texas more dangerous. And that's what Republicans have done. They've made Texas more dangerous. I want to add this. Ben commented on this earlier. The fact is, after the Walmart shooting in 2019, we had a right-wing extremist guy. The Republicans created a domestic terrorism task force headed by the governor, lieutenant governor, a bunch of other people, including Steve McCraw with DPS. That task force and a special unit within DPS was supposed to track guys like this and their messaging on social media. They failed yet again. Uvalde's failure was a 77-minute horrific kind of failure. This one is no different. Here you have a special task force created to follow this kind of madness, and they didn't get it done. And little children died and families died because the government in Texas failed them. So you ask about these folks, and there's this bill, they're going to keep fighting no matter what happens this session. Afterwards today, I had lunch with the families. They said, look, you know, we're going to keep doing. We're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's right, because it's just, because we never want this to happen to anyone else, ever.
They are fighting for the safety of our kids, and we're grateful for it. Matthew Watkins, State Senator.